You know what my mother used to call me? Dangerous.
I see 20 or 30 girls come in here every day, mostly from small towns with big dreams, because some guy named Chad in the food court told them they were beautiful enough to be a model. And they're all good. You?
This is Jessie.
You're going to be great.
Pretty new girl walks into a room, everyone's head turns, looks her up and down, wondering, who's she fucking? Who could she fuck? And how high can she climb? And is it higher than me?
What are you?
Women would kill to look like this.
Who wants sour milk when you can get fresh meat? Right?
True beauty is the highest currency we have. Now, without it, she would be nothing.
In my most recent movie analysis, we took a look at Hereditary and discussed the taboo topic of bad moms and mother wounds. Fitting since this most recently past holiday, Mother's Day, quiet as it's kept, isn't exactly a day of celebration for many of us, including yours truly. I want to expand on this topic of wounded feminine energy and delve further into the shadows to tackle the taboo, green-eyed elephant in the room, jealousy. Our relationship with our mothers is one of the keystones to developing our own personalities and self-esteem, which in turn affects the way we relate to others. If men with mommy issues have a hard time respecting and developing relationships with women, then I think the same can be said for women with those same issues. Femininity channels do touch on this subject a little bit when talking about mammies and pick-me's, the women who betray themselves and their gender by operating in their masculine for undeserving men. But I haven't seen too many women actually being honest or even open about women's own competitive nature that is the motivation for the existence of these archetypes. Jealousy isn't an inherently bad thing. In fact, it can be a powerful motivator. However, in this society where, more often than not, individuals feel that it is easier to wallow in self-pity and poison themselves with insecurity, rather than taking the steps to manifest a life they'd actually enjoy, jealousy tends to instead be weaponized at others' expense. Couple this with the wounded feminine energy that seeks to compete and compare itself to others, rather than celebrate and applaud its own autonomous uniqueness, by proxy celebrating the diversity amongst women, and you end up with a toxic and sometimes fatal recipe for relational aggression. Nicholas Winding Refn's The Neon Demon is the sort of goth twin of Mean Girls. It's nowhere near the lighthearted, quotable comedy that Mean Girls was. It is a horror film, but I feel it's similar in that it does a really good job of showcasing some of the more manipulative cattiness and relational aggression amongst the feminine demographic. The takeaway is that where Mean Girls keeps the focus on the what, the Neon Demon brings more focus to the why, exposing how relational aggression is often propagated due to women internalizing the male gaze and competing for the top position of it girl within the patriarchy. The Neon Demon is one of those movies that is going to come off as grotesquely pretentious the first time you watch it, unless you have a really open/imaginative mind. I'd be lying if I said this movie doesn't have some weird and downright disturbing and triggering moments, i.e., various scenes of assault and one of necrophilia that I very much had to skip through. But by the end of it, I was left pondering my own existence here on Earth, and for that, I can honestly say that this is one of my more favorite movies. I don't know that I put it in my list of top 5 or anything, but I don't by any means regret watching it.
How was the shoot? Jessie was there. Who? Oh yeah, her. Why? Jack was shooting her. What? She's been in town for like a minute. They brought her in for a test. Jack doesn't test new models. Well, he does now. Apparently, he thinks she's gonna be this giant star. Jack shoots me all the time. That's not gonna last. What's that supposed to mean? It means your expiration date's almost due.
The first thing I picked up on is the depths of depravity women go through and seemingly are willing to subject themselves to when they decide to utilize the vanity of men in order to attain success in their world. Of course, at face value, the movie offers a critique of the fashion and Hollyweird industry, but being a retired exotic dancer, I've also seen the demons you deal with when you decide to objectify yourself. And yes, even if it's a choice, it is still objectification, and it still poses a risk to your being. Jessie, our protagonist, was objectified in every second of the movie, becoming more and more open with her willingness to be objectified and her awareness that others sought to objectify her. But unfortunately, she didn't recognize the danger she was in until it was too late. She starts off the movie as very shy, but still maintaining an aura of quiet confidence, which is shown to us with her conversation with Dean after she is signed to the modeling agency. She insists that there is nothing valuable or noteworthy about her outside of her looks, and I think this is what really makes her stand out, although I'll say it's a double-edged sword. More on that later. I do think that her early naivety and virginity do give her an alluring aura to the vipers around her, but the one difference between her and the other models is that she is 100% confident in her looks. Confidence has this magic that will actually make you more attractive. Obviously, Jessie is conventionally attractive, but because she has this inner light inside, unlike everyone else, she is that much more magnetic.
What about you, Sarah? What would your lipstick be called?
Fuck off. Act.
Sarah appears to be an aging it girl. She more than likely was at the top, or pretty close to it, when she first entered the scene, but because of her nasty personality and her insecurity that has her worried about being replaced, she manifested a self-fulfilling prophecy that made sure she would turn into a bitter has-been. Within the first conversation she has with Jessie, she makes it very clear that she is not interested in being friends with her by making the rudely invasive inquiry into her sex life. She follows this up with a brief diatribe on the competitive and comparative nature of women, underscoring her unfriendliness, but also indirectly admitting to her own insecurity. If you truly believe yourself to be the prize and know that you are in your own lane, you are not going to be caught up in comparing yourself to others because you know that no one truly compares to you. I don't think there's anything wrong with having an awareness of how the general public would rate you on the totem pole, but the key to life is to realize that anyone who would seek to take you down a peg is already beneath you. Those who would place limits on you are unworthy of you even validating their opinions of you. If you let those rules dictate your life, you are limiting yourself, therefore giving up your own power. A sure recipe for unhappiness.
Well?
Well, what?
What do you think? Do you think she's beautiful?
I don't know, I mean... Yeah, I guess she's fine.
Yes, that's exactly the word that I was looking for. She's fine, right? You can sit down now, thanks. Thank you, Dean. Now, look at Jessie. Nothing fake, nothing false. A diamond in a sea of glass.
Gigi is doing better than Sarah because, on the surface level, Gigi is confident. She has invested a lot of time, pain, and presumably money into her looks via plastic surgery, and she talks about it as if it's no big deal to her. However, we can see from the first conversation in the bathroom and through her actions towards Jessie that deep down, she is actually extremely insecure and suffering from imposter syndrome. This is why Gigi meets her untimely demise. She has no confidence in her abilities, so when she consumes a truly confident divine feminine, that energy is rejected by her body. You would think that after everything she has put herself through, she would be the most confident person in the world. But I think the point of her character is to comment on the fact that only the most insecure person would be willing to subject their bodies to such trauma, especially considering that they're doing it for the validation of others who don't even value their actual person. Gigi is ultimately a pick-me chick, excited and thirsty for any attention that comes from a man, regardless to if those men truly value her. She brags about Dr. Andrews' remarks that she is his, quote, bionic woman, and it is, of course, embarrassing for her. Is that doctor cutting up her face and body for free? More than likely not, and while it is never specified how Gigi actually pays him, the fact remains that she is paying him, and then he is getting more out of the deal because she, number one, is a walking advertisement for his work, and number two, he essentially has a living doll that he can mold however he sees fit. Gigi went to him for one operation, an operation that already had objectifying motivations, but because she has no self-esteem and doesn't believe herself to be the prize, she allowed this dude to convince her that she needed all these other changes to fit his standards.
You want to know what I had done, don't you? Well, I thought I'd get more work if I went down a cup size, so I looked like a hanger, you know? But then my surgeon, Dr. Andrew, he pointed out a lot of other problems with my body.
And it's the same case with a designer. She brags about not having to go to fittings for Robert, but Robert had absolutely no problem humiliating her and degrading all the effort she's put into her looks in the restaurant. Her transformation did give her a short-term high, but because she didn't understand that femininity isn't skin deep, it is a way of life and mindset, her success had no longevity or depth. When I viewed Sarah's outward appearance, I was a little shocked at her insecurity because I believed her to have the look of a high fashion model, and I think this is why she ended up getting the top spot over Gigi. The only person Sarah viewed as actual competition was Jessie, which is why she immediately started being more confident once she literally took her out and absorbed her. This is why Sarah has no problem hanging around Gigi, because she believes that due to Gigi's manufactured beauty and imposter syndrome, she isn't a real threat. And this is punctuated by the fact that she laughs at Gigi's initial embarrassment by Jessie, and the lip curl of contempt when Gigi kills herself. It appears to me that she and Gigi have a codependent/symbiotic relationship. I think that Sarah lives vicariously through Gigi because Gigi apparently is a successful model. Unlike Sarah, she appears to have no problem getting gigs. But she also receives validation from the fact that Gigi's success is only because of her manufactured beauty. I think it implies that if Sarah really wanted to, she could get work done and easily outshine Gigi, at least in Sarah's head. Like I said, she doesn't view Gigi as serious competition. Gigi, on the other hand, gets validation from having her attractive, quote, confidently bitchy friend around her, and possibly does also live vicariously through Sarah, since she's a natural beauty. She feels that surrounding herself with people who are noticeably attractive will give the illusion that she really belongs around them, covering up her internalized inferiority. Ruby is the most dangerous of all the antagonists because she is the best at pretending she isn't one. At least, she's good at pretending to someone who is naive, as is the case with Jessie. She was showing her predatory nature from the moment she was introduced into the movie.
So where are you staying? At a motel in Pasadena. By yourself? What do your parents think about that? They don't really. Don't think or just don't care? They're not around anymore. I'm sorry. Hey, you want to go somewhere?
The first red flag came when she was prying into Jessie's family life. If you're not in an environment where you're getting to know someone, and everything in your body language says you're not interested in opening up, but they're still trying to pry you open, this is a key indicator that you need to keep your good eye on them. First of all, if you're new in town, don't tell strangers you are new in town. Especially if it's a town as dangerous and fake as Los Angeles. And a brief moment of silence for this ironic misnomer. Lying gets a really bad rep because it is mostly utilized by low vibrational beings, but I think we need to normalize using lying to protect ourselves. Think of lying as a cloak that hides your vulnerabilities. In this case, you don't have to worry about the bad karma because your intentions behind it are literally about self-preservation. And frankly, self-preservation is a right. I would say as long as you aren't doing it at someone else's expense, it's okay. But if you think about it, pretty much everything in life comes at someone else's expense. There can't be winners if there are no losers. As long as you aren't literally killing anyone, or otherwise going out of your way to make someone feel bad, you'll be alright. You should lie about yourself, never to yourself. Honestly, I'm at the point now where I kind of feel like honesty is overrated. Note, I'm not talking about authenticity, I'm talking about transparent honesty. We need to normalize having an aura of mystery about ourselves and not being such an open book into our souls and vulnerabilities until someone proves to us they can be trusted. And even then, I don't think we need to be 1000% honest with everyone around us. It's okay to keep some things to yourself. What Jessie should have done was lie about everything going on in her life. Or at the very least, avoid the question. Note that she wouldn't be lying about her actual person, but she would have built a veil of secrecy that would have prevented Ruby from knowing she was perfect prey. Ruby asks all the right questions to determine if she had any sort of safety net around her. when they off her, obviously, they're motivated by jealousy and resentment. But I think what really makes them comfortable enough to go through with it is the knowledge that Jessie doesn't have anyone who actually cares about her. So, no one would miss her or investigate her disappearance. And this includes the elite of the fashion world who are so enamored by her. She's noticeably young, and any decent human being would be concerned for a minor in this toxic environment, but nobody gave a sugar honey iced tea because they all wanted a piece of her light to drive away the darkness in their own souls. Going back to the first scene, I want to point out another red flag in the way Ruby physically interacted with Jessie. Rather than helping her clean off the area she was already working on, her arm, Ruby goes straight for the jugular and her décolletage area. A very invasive move because this is a very sensitive and vulnerable area. So again, she's crossing boundaries because Jessie doesn't quite have the confidence to stop her. And then, in the bathroom, we get more foreshadowing with her literally saying "red rum" in the mirror. A very cleverly disguised pun, since she manages to play it off like she's talking about the alcoholic beverage.
Red rum.
What?
That's what it's called.
The clearest red flag, though, actually came from Gigi.
So, what do you think? I think that I wish I had your hair. Is this your natural color? Just so beautiful. Don't you think that she's just perfect? Is that your real nose? Yeah. God, life is so unfair. Gigi just got out of the body shop. She's still a little sensitive. You had work done? You say that like it's a bad thing. Sweetie, plastics is just good grooming. Imagine going a year without brushing your teeth. I go to this guy in Beverly Hills. Andrew. Dr. Andrew. She's in love with him. Of course I love him. Look at me. He calls me the bionic woman. Is that a compliment? I hear your parents are dead. That must be really hard for you.
Gigi bringing up Jessie's orphan status shows that, number one, she obviously can't trust Gigi since she's weaponizing her trauma against her, and number two, can't trust Sarah since she laughed at her, quote, friend's humiliation. If this is how she treats her friend, how do you think she'd treat an enemy? But the biggest takeaway from this is that Ruby is untrustworthy. I mean, how do you think Gigi found out this information? Also notice how Ruby didn't check Gigi for bringing it up, or ever apologize to Jessie for sharing that personal information with her.
You ever had a girl screw you out of a job? Yes. So what'd you do about it? I ate a... Ew. Gross.
I think the most serious lesson to take away from Jessie's story is to never underestimate the competitive and comparative nature of women, particularly and specifically if you are a feminine woman. Each of these female antagonists represents an archetype to watch out for. Sarah is the mean girl, the outright hostile and cold viper who uses a harsh exterior to cover up festering insecurities. Her breakdown in the bathroom is symbolic of how her confidence and self-esteem has been shattered. The very fact that it is so easily dismantled reveals its inauthenticity. The scene in the bathroom is another forewarning and a visual of the vampiric leeches that are around Jessie. Sarah is allured because the blood signifies that Jessie is not the ethereal being her beauty implies. She is in fact human, and therefore, she can be taken down. I do think this could also be speaking to the fetishization of the torture of women and girls, a topic that was introduced at the party, during Jesse's nightmare, and even with the opening photo shoot. Gigi is the frenemy, the nice, nasty, and passive-aggressive type who is never truly happy for you. Anytime Gigi is presented with Jesse's accomplishments, she always brushes it off and turns to bragging about herself in an effort to prove that she is better than and unbothered by Jesse, which of course just serves to show how inferior and threatened she actually is. When she assumes that Jesse only landed the show because she slept with the designer, it is itself very misogynistic, but following it up with calling her masculine is especially insulting because it implies that the only reason a powerful man such as him would find her so enamoring is because she is more akin to a man. This is of course not the case. The very fact that Jessie attracts so much to her is evidence of her own femininity. Remember, divine feminines, we don't chase, we attract. Ruby represents the masculine friend who has internalized the male gaze, lusting after feminine women to get the gratification of femininity she would have otherwise gained from nurturing her own. Her actions throughout the movie remind me of the nice guy archetype. She wasn't nice to Jessie because she valued her and genuinely cared for her. It was all a ploy to get her to let her guard down so that she'd sleep with her. Her insistence and eagerness to take Jessie's virginity calls to mind the creeps that fetishize virgins as a perverted form of conquering, rather than out of genuine respect for and a desire to make a woman feel good. And this is emphasized by her very disturbing action of necrophilia. She doesn't want Jessie as a partner she can partake in intimacy with. She sees her as an object she can do things to. I think this emptiness Ruby feels inside is also underlined by her second and less glamorous occupation as a mortuary makeup artist. The scenery works to juxtapose and reveal the hypocrisy and the ugly underbelly of the fashion industry. Ruby is surrounded by corpses, empty vessels with no real depth to them that you'd think would have been freed from the confines of society, but unfortunately are still slaves to vanity, presumably due to the standards imposed by whoever is in charge of their funeral. This of course draws a parallel to the models who seemingly have it all, but are unbelievably insecure, taking the effort to beautify their exteriors to fit Hollywood's mold, all while their insides are rotting. The final feminine lesson to take away from Jessie's story is that a pretty face is only as valuable as the brain behind it. Her unfortunate folly was believing that her peers' desire to be her would be so intoxicating that they wouldn't be able to live without her. Of course, this is a double-edged sword. While it can be helpful for networking, I'd personally advise you to keep your good eye on, if not entirely stay away from anyone who desires to be you. You just have no idea what they're capable of or willing to do in their pursuit of getting what you've got. Going back to the conversation she had with Dean after getting signed, I do feel like it shows an underlying insecurity there. Her calling out to the moon, "Do you see me?" reflects her desire for admiration and validation, which is not an inherently bad thing. I think it's normal for humans to desire validation, attention, and a certain level of acceptance from the tribe. But the key is that when you believe yourself to be the prize, you know that all attention is not good attention. So it's imperative to be very picky and discerning of who you allow to bask in your femininity. The pool scene is a visual of this important lesson. She starts off at the top of the pool looking down on Ruby, but then ends up in the bottom of the pool, symbolizing how if you aren't discerning and feed into your own hubris, the vampires will do anything to put themselves above you. sisterhood within a patriarchy is largely a myth. There is, of course, fact based in fiction, but there's a lot of discernment that must be utilized to sort out the deceivers. Jessie's belief that her value is exclusive to her outer exterior, and her willingness to surround herself with those who envy her, as opposed to genuinely wanting the best for her, also, to me, demonstrates a need to do some shadow work. Her mother's words describing her as dangerous makes me wonder if she even had to deal with envy from her mother. The use of the word dangerous as opposed to something more flattering, coupled with her desire for validation from the moon, a celestial symbol of femininity, makes me think that it's very possible that Jessie's mother was narcissistic. This would explain why she dotes on the validation and attention of toxic people. This would also explain the development of her own narcissism that caused her to see herself as invincible. Beauty is not at all a bad investment, but it is a tool, and it is only as valuable as all the other stuff that is separated from it. It will get your foot in the door, but your personality is what will gain you a seat at the table. Always, always remember that femininity is not skin deep. It is a state of being. When getting to know someone, before becoming attached, ask yourself if and what they have to gain from you. Why are they interested in you, and would they gain more from you than you from them? You are the only person who is entitled to your energy. This isn't the least bit spiritually PC to say, but the universe rewards us when we are selfish and entitled because it means we're putting the energy out that we are deserving of the best. Life simply confirms what you believe. This is the way of the law of attraction. I no longer spend my time comparing myself to other women, at least not in any way that's unproductive, especially not for the attention of men. I've come to terms with the fact that everyone won't like me. I know that the work I'm doing and have done has manifested an absolutely phenomenal woman, so anybody who wouldn't like who I am is not someone I would care to entertain anyway. Think of it this way. There are some completely asinine morons on this plane, so if everyone liked you, that would mean appealing to them too. Is that really something you want? Now, a disclaimer. This, of course, doesn't mean you can be an absolutely awful person and expect everything to work out for you. As I've said before, karma is real, and she comes for all. The point is not to necessarily be selfish and entitled at the expense of other people. It's to be selfish and entitled in spite of other people. If you notice a negative pattern in your life and you decide to undertake steps to change it, steps that genuinely feel right to you and you know are helping you, then who the F is anybody to say you shouldn't do it, or it's not realistic, or otherwise try to dissuade you and place you back on the hamster wheel? I mentioned in a previous video that with this femininity and leveling up movement that's going on, there are going to be a lot of detractors that will do their best to convince us there is no point or we have no power. But understand that's all a test from the universe to see how bad you want it and if you believe in yourself, thus believing in the universe. In the minds of those stuck in the matrix, it is easier to complain than it is to change. If they were really so satisfied with their own lives, would they really be so hell-bent on convincing you to do the things that are making you unhappy? Before giving any sort of credence to someone's opinion of yourself, ask yourself these questions. Do they have what I want? Do I truly want to be like this person? Is their critique making me a better version of myself? Using these questions as a guide has helped me to realize that more people than we're willing to admit are completely full of it and are low-key dead inside because they've given up on their own power and their dreams. As the saying goes, people want to see you doing good, but not better than them. And as I keep repeating on this channel, misery loves company. As always, thank you so much for watching. I love you, and I'll see you in the next video.